I think there's some amusing news when it comes to Hedera. And what is that? Not too long ago, it was announced that the nonprofit consortium of leading global energy companies, Blockchain for Energy, has joined the Hedera Council. And this is, by the way, coming from the Hedera account on X. So I think hypothetically, this is something that is pretty amusing because when we take a look at the Hedera Governing Council, includes the likes of Google. We take a look at LG, we take a look at Mondelez. Mondelez, their brands do include like Oreo, for instance, and I think everyone's pretty much heard about Oreo. Also Cliff, like the Cliff Bar. So I think it's pretty interesting what is going on with Hedera. I get it, the price of H bar, despite the very good pump that we had not too long ago, there was a pullback, and that could be said for a lot of altcoins though, but I'm just saying, the attention and kind of like I think good vibes surrounding H bar, many people would argue, is not as positive as before. But you know what? I'm still very optimistic when it comes to Hedera because we have to take a look at this further, right? When it comes to, again, Blockchain for Energy. As part of its membership, Blockchain for Energy will allegedly expand on its fully integrated emissions management platform built on Hedera. And by the way, it's Blockchain for Energy Carbon, but then it's like simplified to B4E Carbon. But besides that, this is to explore new sustainability solutions that boost efficiency, cut costs, speed timelines, and spark innovation across the energy sector. I like this because, again, kind of through this, the basic gist of it is allegedly advancing emissions reporting standards. This is something that I like because nowadays, a lot of enterprises, they want to go green. They want to showcase that they care about the environment. So what better way to do it than, let's say, projects that are kind of, allegedly very sustainable and allegedly kind of, having that same mindset, right? About, being more sustainable, going green. So I kind of like the whole aspect when it comes to Hedera, because when we take a look at Hedera Hashgraph, it doesn't use traditional blockchain technology. It uses something called a directed acyclic graph, which allegedly consumes way less energy than many of its competitors. Like, for instance, per transaction on average, allegedly, Hedera consumes less energy than Solana, Avalanche, Algorand, Ethereum, and many others. So the way you take a look at it is that when it comes to Hedera Hashgraph, just by nature, because of the hypothetical, I would say nature of what it just kind of feels like it may have better advantages over, let's say, traditional blockchain technology, because allegedly a directed acyclic graph is typically, again, something that consumes way less energy. It usually is very scalable. Like, for instance, Hedera's native services can reliably scale up to 10,000 transactions per second and even beyond, not to mention improved data storage. I mean, in theory, there are some better, advantages to, you know, a directed acyclic graph when compared to, let's say, traditional blockchain technology. But the thing is, it doesn't have the adoption that blockchain technology has. And I think it's only fair to assume that it's only fair to kind of think that way, and how it's actually not surprising because, mass adoption is going to take years. Like, for instance, even if we take a look at the kind of like DeFi projects on Hedera, right? And DeFi, it means, decentralized finance. We take a look at Saucer Swap. By all means, right? If we take a look at a directed acyclic graph, allegedly, we have to consider its advantages over traditional blockchain technology. But then, what would people argue has a better like DeFi ecosystem than Hedera? Many people would say that, something like Avalanche has a way better DeFi ecosystem. Take a look at, the projects that are often kind of mentioned when it comes to, again, Avalanche. We consider something like Joe, we consider something like Pangolin, right? There's also some others, but I'm just saying. When I take a look at Avalanche, which is a layer 1 blockchain, allegedly, Hedera Hashgraph on paper, because it is a directed acyclic graph, could it maybe be viewed as better than Avalanche? Many people would arguably say maybe, but then Avalanche has better adoption, in theory, in my opinion, at least when it comes to the retail side of things. So then many people would say, because of this, Hedera is never going to gain any sort of attention during a fully fledged bull run, because it doesn't have the best adoption, at least again when it comes to the retail side of things. But hypothetically, I kind of don't view it that way because from what I see, people usually care about the narrative. They care about kind of what the project is trying to achieve. Like, for instance, there's many blockchain gaming projects out there, many, metaverse projects. They say they're going to do this, do that. They never do anything, but then still their market caps are pretty massive right now even, right? And that's not even really considering what it could do if, let's say, the markets did really wake up and we see a fully fledged type of altcoin season. So I think that kind of showcases kind of the environment of the space that we're in as of right now. Like, in a way in which people, I feel like, from what I've seen, don't really care about the adoption. Because even if we take a look at AI projects, right, many of them, I feel like the adoption's not that good. But then still, some of them are pretty massive. So I think it's not going to be the determining factor as to whether or not Hedera could do this or that during a hypothetical peak of a bull run. But this is all just my perspective. I cannot tell the future. I can only look at the present and the past. And when I take a look at the past, though, usually altcoins, as a worst case scenario, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event, and the last one happened in April of last year. So we had 18 months on top of that. That's around October this year. Even if, let's say, the markets were, pretty good, in theory, based off history, right now wouldn't even be a timing when altcoins are supposed to peak as a worst case scenario, hypothetically, anyways. Like, again, based off history, that's around October. Now I get it, each cycle is going to be different. There's going to be different, things that are going on. I'm totally aware of that. But then the way you take a look at it is that why would I be worried? Again, I'm just going to stay patient, and who knows if that October date will ever come true, but I'm still going to stay at it and just continue to dollar cost average hold, and I just wait. That's it. Because even though nothing I say is financial advice, if, let's say, H bar were to go to the price of $3, considering current circulating supply, market cap at that point would be around $127 billion. That's around a 20x from here. I'm totally aware that, this market cap, people may be like, oh, what is this? But take a look at BNB, which years ago, back in 2021, exceeded over $100 billion in market cap. And many people would argue that, you know what? Back in 2021, the factors may hypothetically look less bullish than right now. I mean, during the peak of that boom that year, again, back in 2021, around 300 million crypto owners. Now we have over 600 million, according to Crypto.com research, which allegedly is more than ever before in history. So then the way you take a look at it is, why would I feel like, the bull run would be worse than back then? Now, again, only time will tell, but just from those numbers right there, I just don't see why it would look worse. This is just my perspective. But again, there's only one thing I can control in all of this, and that is just myself, dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. That's it. Some people out there, they say, hey, why don't you pull up a price chart, draw this and draw that? Look, right, it doesn't matter what I draw on a price chart. Like, I can draw SpongeBob or, draw some random triangles, draw some random lines, and say, hey, falling wedge pattern. I can draw like a cup and handle or whatever people, draw when it comes to these technical analysis price charts. But just imagine this. Let's say I drew some random lines. Sure, it looks cool. It's pretty interesting, I guess. But then what does it do? The market's not going to pay attention to that, right? Do you think H bar is going to look at that and then suddenly do what I, draw on a price chart? No, it's not going to do that. So then why would I do that? I would rather just focus on the fundamentals, take a look at what the project's all about, take a look at kind of the updates that's going on with the project, and really just staying patient. That's it. Because it's a patience game for me. I am not a day trader. I don't use leverage. I don't swing trade. That's not my style. What I do is I literally just believe in a project, I hold, and I just wait. That's it. I mean, nothing else beyond that. This is what I do, right? When it comes to, a project that I believe in. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I would greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.